Why hello! Welcome back to another installment of Autism and Me. Today I'm going to be talking about what it was like growing up as a child on the spectrum without any kind of diagnosis. In this day and age, there is a lot of info and a lot of resources out there about autism, but when I was much younger, like 5 and 6 and 7, there was very little information out there about what autism was and what it could look like. And this led to many years of me not only not being understood, but also being improperly responded to by my parents and my family. For example, there were many times when I was younger and I couldn't explain something properly, or I couldn't communicate what I wanted to, and I would get so upset about that I would just get really physically violent and angry. And my family just thought that was because I was a bad kid, that I was just really violent and aggressive, but it wasn't because of that. It was because I was trying to communicate, but there was this barrier that really stopped me from being able to communicate properly. We didn't know at the time that was my autism spectrum disorder. Sometimes it is hard for me to not be upset with my parents, because looking back at how I was as a kid, it's like, how did you not know? But then I have to remind myself what I mentioned earlier in the video, that back in those days there wasn't as much information out there as there is now. I think that a lot of problems and a lot of struggle could have been avoided if my family had understood what was going on with me. My childhood is something that I have spent a lot of time suppressing, not because I had horrible parents or a horrible living situation, but because the world was very scary and foreign to me, and I didn't understand why. My parents told me that I was basically completely nonverbal until I was 5 years old. I know that until that point, there must have been a lot of frustration and confusion going on, because I couldn't communicate what I needed, even though all the other kids my age could talk just fine. And then as I grew older and I was going through school and I was having huge difficulties learning the way my siblings were learning, it was just so awful. I remember getting just so frustrated and upset with my schoolwork that I would just become enraged, and I would just break my pencils and throw them on the ground, or throw my book across the room. And it wasn't because I was a rebellious kid, it was because I was just so confused and anxious and stressed out that I didn't know what to do. So I reverted to the only thing I did know, and that was physical violence. There were times when I would get so angry and upset that I would just lay on the ground and flail and bang my head against the pavement until I was bleeding. All because I didn't understand what was happening with my feelings and with my body, and I didn't know how to communicate those things. One of the reasons why I want to talk about autism so much is because I don't want a 5-year-old kid to go through what I had to go through. I don't want someone to feel so stressed out and anxious and confused about their schoolwork that they feel like their only option is to just break their pencils and scream and throw their books across the room. And I don't want parents to be scared and confused also because they don't know where this behavior is coming from. I know that there's a lot of people out there my age who are on the spectrum that have been through stuff like this and probably have never had anyone really talk to them before about it. So I guess part of why I'm making this video is that I want you guys to know that you are valid, and that the things that you went through are real, and that you weren't just a bad kid, because there was a lot more going on that you didn't understand. It's okay, and it doesn't make you wrong or bad. And I wish that someone had told me that years and years ago. I spent years as a child believing that I was just a really bad kid, and believing that something was wrong with me. But I know now that that's not true, and that it was because of this autism spectrum disorder, and it was because of all these sensory processing things and these language barriers. It wasn't because I was a bad kid. I know my parents did the best that they could, and I know that they always meant well for me. But I'm just asking, if you have a kid that struggles with this stuff, please help them understand that they're not a bad kid. Most of the time, they don't want to be doing those things, or they don't understand what is happening, and it can be really scary for them. Take some time to do some research and just learn what you can. Maybe take them to therapy, whatever you're able to do. And if you are someone who's on the spectrum, and if you've been like this or you go through this kind of stuff, please understand that your feelings are valid and the things that you go through are valid, and that even though behaviors can be really difficult and communication can be really difficult, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're broken. It just means that you're different, and that's okay. Growing up as someone on the autism spectrum was difficult, but it doesn't have to be difficult. If you're someone like me who had a very confusing and struggling childhood, I'd love to hear your story and hear what you have to say about your experience. Or if you're a parent that has a child that goes through this stuff and you're kind of like, I don't know what to do, I love my kid, but this is like more than I thought I could handle, you can do this. I know that you can do this. Just make sure that you're willing to reach out for help when you need it. It is possible for things to get better for everyone, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We all deal with things. We are all valuable, no matter how different you are. That's really all I have to talk about today. Thank you very much for watching. This was a somewhat difficult video to make because, like I said before, I don't really think about my childhood very much, so to talk about it in a video was a bit hard, but it was definitely worth it. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is part of my Autism and Me series. I will put a link to the playlist in the description below where you can find all the videos that I made within this Autism and Me series. If you'd like to follow along with this series or any other videos that I make on my channel, please feel free to subscribe. I don't know if the button is still right there, but it should be somewhere underneath this video. Please feel free to share your story and your experience in the comment section below this video. And until next time, I hope that you take care of yourself, and I hope that you have a very wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Bye!